It's time now to return to the noun system. We've already studied first and second declension nouns. Now we turn our attention to the third declension, which can be a little overwhelming, a little scary for students, but there are a few helpful hints to help us get through it. Basically, the third declension nouns gather up all the nouns that aren't already found in first and second declensions, which means that there are a number of exceptions to patterns and things like that. However, for most third declension nouns, we've already learnt the endings because the endings are shared with the participle. Since we've studied the participle, these endings will be fairly familiar to you. Also, the way that we discern what the stem of a noun is in the third declension is different from the first and second declension. With the first and second declension, we would just take the ending off the nominative masculine singular or the nominative singular form, and you would work out what the stem is. So logos, you take the personal ending os off, and log is our stem. For third declension nouns, we actually look at the second person genitive form and take the genitive ending off to discern what the stem of the noun is. Also, one other thing, there are a different pattern of formation for nouns whose stem ends in a consonant and nouns whose stem ends in a vowel. We'll explore the vowel nouns in the next lesson. For now, we will look at those that end in a consonant. So let's look at these forms. We're using as our model noun the noun aster or astir, which means star, and this will help us to work out the forming of many third declension nouns that end in a consonant. So let's look at them. First, we have the nominative singular form, aster. Then the genitive form is asteros. The dative form, asteri. The accusative form, astera. Nominative plural, asteres. Genitive, asteron. Dative, astrasin, and accusative, asteras. You'll notice that for the dative plural, the epsilon drops out, and we have astrasin rather than aster. That is common throughout third declension nouns for the dative plural. So these endings that we see here will be familiar if you have already learnt the endings for the participle. Now, there's a small group of nouns, 3 nouns in fact in the New Testament, that follow this pattern but with a slight variation. It happens that these nouns are all family nouns: father, pater, mother, meter, and daughter, thugater. And the main difference here is that the epsilon that we find in the aster formation sometimes drops out. So you'll notice that the nominative singular form is the same ending, but the genitive singular form, instead of asteros, we have patros. The epsilon is not there. Instead of asteri in the dative singular, we have patri. Otherwise, we see the same formation. Now, there is one set of rules that we need to learn when forming this dative plural form, because remember we have this slight variation with the epsilon dropping out and the astrasin. We need to learn these rules for the dative plural. When certain letters combine with a sigma, we have a change in the spelling. We've seen some of this before, and some of this will be a refresher, but some of it is also new. When we have kappa and gamma and chi, or gamma and chi, plus this sin ending that we will find in the dative plural, these 3 letters will turn into xi or xi, so the ending becomes xin. When we have pi or pi, or beta, or phi, or phi, plus the sigma ending, we get psi or psi. So the dative plural will end with psin. When we have tau or tav, delta, theta, or nu or ni, plus the sigma, those letters will drop out and the sigma will remain. So the dative plural ending becomes sin. These other rules are also relevant. If the noun ends in these consonants, ant, when we add the sin ending, we find asin. In other words, the nu plus the tau, or the ni plus the tav, have dropped out. When we have ent plus sin, we get asin or isin. So again, the nu and the tau, or the ni and the tav, drop out, but we also have a lengthening with the yota to get asin or isin. When the ending ont is added to sin, then we have usin. So again, the nu or the ni and the tau, the tav, are dropped out, but we have a different kind of lengthening, this time with an upsilon or ypsilon. So these rules only pertain to the dative plurals for the third declension nouns, and they do need to be studied. These patterns are fairly straightforward. Most of them we have seen before, especially these first three, so they will be familiar to you, but keep them in mind so that you can recognize a third declension dative plural when we see them. So in this lesson, we've looked at third declension nouns whose stem ends in a consonant. In the next lesson, we will look at third declension nouns whose stem ends in a vowel.